Okay. So can you start by stating your full name and your pronouns, please?
My name is Erica Xavier-Beauvoir, and I go by all of the pronouns. There is no pronoun out there. You will not offend me. I go by all of them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Of course.
I'd like to start off by giving folks an opportunity to respond to the question, who are you? And in that, can you please talk about how your identity or identities influence your role as a death worker, a death doula?
Yeah, of course. It's a very for me, it's a very layered and complex question to ask, who are you? Because I'm made up of so many parts. I'm a West Indian, Afro-Indigenous two-spirit storyteller, Indigenous practitioner and priest, psychic medium, and writer. I'm influenced by visceral ancestral connections and the incarnations of deity energy moving through me. My destiny is intentionally woven to help spirits cross and elevate. Thus, death doula work became an organic space for me to create rituals and ceremony and artistry directly with the transition spirits. Being somebody that's clairaudient, I can hear their request. Conclusively, I'm ancient. My soul is ancient. My magic is passed down, and Indigenous magic fused my destiny in death work.
Already so powerful with that introduction. Thank you for bringing all of yourselves to this space and to this conversation. One of the reasons why I wanted to reach out to you is because it's so clear how spirituality and art really move and drive your work. And one of the things that I found really interesting about you and your story as I was figuring out some of those pieces and looking, through your website and Instagram, is that you are initiated into multiple spiritual traditions. How does that work show up? As I feel like we're in a time where a lot of folks are returning to spirituality in those ways. And so when you're working with folks, how does that part of you show up and support?
Well, I tell people, I give a kind of like a warning tag, and the warning tag is all pieces of me show up in space. Whatever space I am in, all of it shows up simultaneously. That doesn't mean that I'm mixing practices or anything like that. It just means that if something is triggered by a certain practice, then I may go down a path of praying to certain energies that are attached to that practice. And oftentimes when it comes to death doula work, my clientele tends to be BIPOC folks. So they understand that whether they have spiritual connection, don't have spiritual connection, they understand that I come with a lot and I am a multi-hyphenated spiritualist. And that's just due to lineage. My father is Haitian, and the Beauvoir line is Googleable. If you Google my great uncle Papa Max Beauvoir, he is and was the reigning Haitian Vodun priest of all of Haiti for several years until his passing. So I have a lot of shoes that I have to continue moving with. So a lot of people, they understand that if I'm not their cup of tea, because it's a very strong cup of tea with some ginger and some lemon and some honey, then they know that I'll help them, get someone that is more their flavor. but I'm supposed to be in multiple practices to channel multiple things for an array of people.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about being a practitioner is knowing who your people are and being able to redirect those who are not.
Mhm.
Can you tell us where you are in the world?
It's also layered, but when it comes to earth things, I am in the South. I work between Atlanta and North Carolina. So I'm residing in Atlanta for now, but will be focusing on the Durham Raleigh area in the future. So I do a lot of driving back and forth and servicing both communities.
There's so much happening in the South, particularly right now. I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri. My family is from the South, very much so, but I was born and raised in Kansas City. I spent about 6 years of my journey in Denver, and now I'm in Jacksonville, Florida.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I'm rooting myself here in trying to understand what's happening and getting connected to folks who are already doing the types of work that I want to do. Being a person who is from the South and doing the work that you are doing, bringing the things that you have to offer. Can you speak a little bit about the challenges that you're noticing from your vantage point,
Mm.
being in this region, whether it's related to death work, spirituality, however you want to take that question?
Yeah, regional challenges are a lack of alternative options for people of color specifically. Um, Economically speaking, green natural burials are assisted. Statistically completed by white urban families. They're the ones that know about green natural burials at this time. Most city cemetery structures and policies don't allow for affordable green natural burial options. The challenges are the lack of green natural burial ecosystems in the South and Indigenous death doula work and networks and those networks that embrace Indigenous and alternative spiritual lifestyles. There's a lot of piecemealed folks and collectives, but it's really hard to find them. You have about, it's almost like you got 5 or 6 organizations doing the same thing, but they're not talking to each other. They're not creating a bigger collective and network. And I think that is a challenge we as a people are going to have to figure out how to navigate because we're so used to supremacy constructs. A supremacy construct is we're all individuals. We all have these things that we want to accomplish, and we're not looking at collective goals and connection and bringing that connective tissue together. So I think that is like one of the major challenges I've seen, and just a lot of barriers around lack of access to education for people of color and them knowing about the options they have to save money.
That piece that you said about, there are a handful of individuals or organizations who are doing the things, but they aren't talking to each other, is something that I am contending with right now. And it is so frustrating because from the larger, perspective, it's like we need organizing around these things. Like that's what will truly move us forward. And I could go on a complete tangent about all of that, but I did have a follow-up question. In looking at your work, it seems that in the death work that you do, green burials, natural burials seems to be like a niche of your work. Can you talk about, why that's important to you, what drew you to that, and talk about a little bit of your expertise there?
Yeah. So how I got to grieving natural burial is by way of death doula work. However, when you go into Indigenous practice, oftentimes you get intel, intel about who you are, your personality, what energies move closely with you. Um, and it really helps you focus on what it is that you should be doing, opposed to going down the rabbit hole of finally getting to what it is you're supposed to be doing, right? We all like have this innate passion, but sometimes it takes us longer to figure out what it is or to step out in courage and do it. So I was doing death doula work, but what I realized is a lot of the energies that I move with wanted me to also focus on the environment. So in Kemetic practice, my spiritual fathers, or the ones that what they say is that you incarnate from, is Geb. And Geb is the deity, the father of Earth, and Anubis, who is the deity of funerary rites and, and passage. So in Kemet, those are the spiritual fathers that I go to. Those are the ones that walk closely with me. Those are the folks that wanted me to continue on their mission. So if my mission doesn't have a component of both earth and funeral rites, then I'm out of alignment of my life path. And as you continue to navigate these different practices, the coding, who you are, will just come up in different ways. It'll come up in different names, right? So we got Kemet, we got Anubis, we have Geb. In Ifa, it's Obalue. Obalue is the father of Earth. Go figure, right? The energy found me again and said, you are supposed to be doing earth work, right? So then I get initiated into his priesthood. So as I'm doing my death doula work, I'm realizing I have to incorporate intrinsic, like visceral soil work. And people started to ask me about green natural burial as a death doula, and I started to do research. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is what this is it. I got there. It took me a while, but I was supposed to infuse my death work, my death doula work, with making sure that people know that they have an environmentally friendly option when it comes to burials, and making sure that I create space in cities, changing policy and community engagement and outreach to make sure that that is the case.
Wow. Thank you for that story. It was very visceral, and I could see this path that you've been on for a while. It sounds like it takes a lot of listening and attuning, and maybe reattuning and listening deeper and paying attention to the messages that are coming in all different directions, to really be on that life path where you are in full alignment with your spiritual purpose here on this earth. And so thank you for being vulnerable and committed to that journey, so that you can share your gifts with us being community. That's really important. How do you care for yourself in that? I find that a lot of people, and this is one of my follow-up questions, so take all the time you need, but I find that people, including myself, who are committed to that journey, need to be asked, how are you caring for yourself? And so I'm curious what caring for yourself looks like.
I go to a lot of concerts. I enjoy myself. I think the last concert we went to was Jill Scott, and got my whole entire life from Jilly from Philly. We also travel a lot. We've been to Costa Rica, Belize. We're going to Mexico like at the end of this week. And we take time to just be, without the spiritual obligations. Now, spirit gonna find me and follow me wherever I go. They'll just speak a different language, but spirit will find me. But I embed a lot of love, a lot of what we call Oshun energy, a lot of honey, a lot of sweetness, a lot of connections with other people, and just creating this love nest for me to fill up my cup so I can help others do the same. So I'm always out on some date, always like hanging out, enjoying. And if there's times I need to just sleep, I do that too. But it's really vital. It's really vital to find out the type of people and the type of things that fuel you and that will actually create space for your cup to become full again. A lot of times we miss that, right? A lot of folks, you ask them what self-care is, they're like, oh, I got my nails done, I went to do yoga, but is that really filling your cup? Or are you just doing it because you Googled self-care and then you saw this article about you can get your nails done, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. We have to figure out what actually works for our spirit. For me, it's writing, it's listening to music, it's being outside at festivals and seeing artwork and being inspired and getting loved on right. Getting loved on right will do it for you, right? But we have to be intentional about knowing what it is that actually fills us up.
I couldn't agree more. And when you said Jilly from Philly, yes, me and my partner were at that show, and I could have passed out just hearing her voice. My goodness. And really a lot of the things that you mentioned, I'm like, yeah, like I do that too. So thank you for offering that. It's the joy for me, it's the love for me, the community. I love all of that for you. I want to talk a little bit about artivism now. You mentioned writing as a place where your soul can be released and fill your cup. How does artivism play a role in your death work?
So oftentimes, our folks have a difficult time talking about death. It's one of those topics where people feel as though if they talk about it, it calls it in. So they don't want to discuss it. So when it comes to spirit, when it comes to grief, when it comes to death work, I realized another channel I am to use is the art of writing and storytelling. And that has allowed people to feel safe in space, to talk about things that oftentimes, they think about, but they don't really want to put air to. One story I tell all the time is, grief is going to feel different at various stages. As a child, I did not know how to conceptualize grief when I went to a funeral for a great uncle that I barely knew. So everything was funny to me. That was my mechanism for grief. Was as a child, I was baffled by the funeral experience itself, just the Black funeral experience. I would ask questions, say, Ma, why is it taking so long to get to the burial ground? Is he gonna get up? Like, is he just gonna come out of the casket? And I know that people at a young age, they thought of these things, right? Like, what is embalming fluid? Does it actually, like, keep the body down, or is there a possibility for them to exit? Um, but knowing that within grief cycles, there can be laughter, there can be some somber energy, there can be joy. All of it exists in the experience. So I bring artistry and poems that I've written about my grandmother, and her experience, transitioning, and then hearing her after the transition and hearing how snappy she still is, because she has some bones to pick about potential things that would have went wrong for her when it came to her burial. So blending the art of laughter and contemplation and nuance into the space, I think just opens people up to have the conversation.
Absolutely. I saw the other day the post that you made about your grandmother. She was beautiful, first and foremost, and it seemed like she had a really strong presence, not only in your life, but in your family. So thank you for bringing her into this space. When you first responded, you said something about folks in our community don't want to talk about something like death because they feel like it calls it in. And it reminded me of just having that cultural awareness, and how important it is to have someone who's journeying with you through something like this, who looks like you, who recognizes and respects different cultural elements that you, the client, may have. And it made me want to move into our question around some of the regional triumphs that you want to highlight between Atlanta or North Carolina. What's happening in your community that speaks to that?
I think the most beautiful thing that I've seen, and that I was able to be a part of recently, was there was a priestess here in Atlanta that decided to take it upon herself to go to mortuary school. And the reason why she decided to go through mortuary school is watching her Elay members have a Christian funeral when they were in Ifa. And it broke her heart. And, she said that there wasn't even pictures of him in his Indigenous, outfits. And there was nothing written down when it came to his wishes and what it is that he needed to do. As an Ifa devotee or priest or priestess, there are certain things that have to happen to your body. There are certain rites of passage that only a priest can do for your body. So she decided to galvanize a group of priests and priestesses, and she's starting an ecosystem and almost like a mobile Indigenous funerary team. Very similar. And I was just inspired by the conversations and where it will go. This would mean those in Indigenous practices will have ecosystems to tap into of various priesthoods that will help with proper burial rites instead of having a traditional burial with Christian leanings. The person will be in alignment with their practice and the funeral rites of said practice. And this is exciting and much needed as more BIPOC folks move into Indigenous practice or wanting just intentional alternatives in death care that are Indigenous leaning.
Yes, I'm so inspired by that. When I was in third grade, I wanted to be a mortician. And it's like once you get older and you start to realize the barriers, the challenges of what that could actually look like, to be inspired by the story that you mentioned and know that maybe one day there's a place where I could see myself. Um, wow, that's incredible. I'm excited to learn more about this person and support them if possible. Yeah, that's really beautiful. Um, Earlier you mentioned something around sharing or working to advocate and change policies. I think it was
Mhm.
green burials. Can you expand on that a little bit more? And my intention with this question is, I think that one of the beautiful things about being a birth worker, death worker, or anywhere along the spectrum in that, is that there are so many different ways that you can show up. And so I want to highlight for folks who are listening that you don't necessarily have to be a spiritualist that comes to this practice and offer that. You don't have to be, you don't have to come a certain way. You can bring what gifts you have and approach this work from a lot of different lenses. So yeah, can you expand a little bit of the policy work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I am all those things plus an executive consultant for a city. And the work that I do for the city is creating green natural burial sustainability offerings for that city residents. So everything that I do is in alignment. Even the things that I do 9 to 5 are in alignment with my life path. And one thing that I've realized and I've done research around is a lot of times city cemetery policy is outdated. It may say something on the lines of you must have a cement vault in order to be placed here at this cemetery. Um, the cement vault is really just used as a land leveling apparatus. It's not something that is absolutely compulsory for funeral practices. It's something that people make money off of. And what I do, what I have done in this particular city is I went through their entire city cemetery policy and revamped it to allow green natural burials in city cemeteries. Why this is groundbreaking and important? Well, because even in the green natural burial space, there are a lot of barriers when it comes to money. So if you want to go out to a beautiful wildlife sanctuary and have your burial there, most folks are going to be dishing out $4,000 up front for the actual plot, which is different and more expensive than getting a city cemetery plot, which a lot of people of color end up receiving because it's cost effective for the family, which then creates a barrier for people to utilize green natural burials because over here you have to spend $4,000 on the plot. And then depending on if you want to use a funeral home, that's another $4,000 on top of that. Now we haven't even got to the casket. We haven't gotten into like additional things that are needed. We're already approaching and over $10,000. So when moving with city cemeteries, the goal is to keep the price where it is. And this will allow BIPOC folks to have a green natural burial at a hybrid cemetery. If they want to go to a sanctuary, they just know that the upfront cost is going to be more. But changing policy allows for people of color to have a green natural burial in the city that they reside in.
That's amazing. And I'm sure, when did this happen and where was this happening, for my own clarification?
When, you mean when did I start this particular project, or?
I think I mean when like was the legislation passed or the policy changed?
Oh, got it. So we just finished revamping the policy. The policy is going to go to city council in July, but it's already pretty much a go and approved. There isn't anything that is stopping it, but we have to go through the formal process of city council saying it's approved, and then we go to the media and what have you. So it's the city attorney is looking over just to make sure all of the verbiage is correct. But by August, at least the historically Black cemetery in Durham, North Carolina, is going to be a hybrid cemetery, which will allow green natural burials, which is also another beautiful thing, that the first city cemetery is going to be the historically Black cemetery, and we're going to allow green natural burials in that particular cemetery.
Talk about reclamation, talk about Sankofa, like, wow, congratulations to you and your team on that. That's incredible. I think one of my, let me be sure. Yeah, I think one of my final questions is, how can folks find you, one, but also how can they support you when they do find you?
Well, they can find me on my website. It is my name, Erica Xavier-Beauvoir.com, or they can reach out to me via Instagram, the Spiritual General. Those are the two ways I'll end up getting your information. When it comes to support, the goal is to just do as much outreach as I possibly can. So if virtually people have space to have me out to talk for about 10 minutes, just so I can briefly give information around green natural burial, that would be ideal. We need more people writing about death work in blogs, interviews, and articles. We need people also, which is a strong ask and it's a big ask, but I also want people to think about this, but we need people to donate land for Indigenous burials. Oftentimes what is needed for Indigenous burials can't be done in regular cemeteries. People are wanting unique and intentional experiences, and we must have space and autonomy to do it. We must have autonomy to fully integrate Indigenous process without fear of harm. And that becomes really difficult to do in a city cemetery when there's another funeral happening, and there are things that we have to do specifically for that body to enter that plot space and then Indigenous practice. So just sparking up conversations in your local circles about having things written down, right? An advance directive, a will that's held by an attorney. If you can't do that right now, just get a document notarized for the time being. So you know, and what everybody else knows, what it is that your wishes are. Now, if you're in Indigenous practice, you need to explain the things that need to happen, because I can tell you right now, with my Southern Baptist AME roots, don't nobody in my family know how to make akara, bean cakes, or moin moin, or fufu. Nobody knows how to do that. So I need to explicitly write down the people that can actually make that food for the offerings that are going to come with my particular burial. So it's incredibly necessary for folks in Indigenous practice to write down those things. The priests that needs to be, the Baba, the Iya, the folks that need to be connected with. And if you're in multiple like myself, you need to have names for everybody. My Mambo, my Iya, my Oba, all the things have to be placed on that document. So you're not out here trying to figure it out. So that is like the best way to like really like have autonomy over what it is that you want for your exit. Your exit from this realm is your final protest. It's the final protest. So what is it that you're going to do in order for that protest to be something that when you are making your way home to the land of the ancestors, you could be proud of? So we reclaim the power to steward that exit as the revolutionary act of resting in peace.
Wow, that gave me chills. That last part gave me chills. Thank you. Thank you so much. I know we have some more time. I want to just offer some space for you to share anything else that maybe we didn't touch on or that you want to expand on before we wrap it up.
Yeah, if people need, I have a document that is more so for people that are in the Yoruba practice of Ifa, but it can be altered. But I have a document that was made by the Iya that I was talking about, that is more Indigenous focused. A lot of things that we don't even know to think about as somebody that isn't in the funeral rites and the Indigenous practice, we don't know. But she took the time to go to Nigeria, ask the elders what it is that needs to be done, and then write a will or an advance directive that explicitly like breaks down the phone numbers and the things that you need to have the Indigenous burial that you need for your soul to continue in its evolution. So if people are interested in that, just send me an email saying, hey, can I have that document? And I will send it over. If you are in the Atlanta area or the Durham, Raleigh triangle area, I could probably just give it to you in person as well. So, and you can meet me too. I'm completely open to hanging out. I like tea though. But yeah, I think that's making sure that people have things written down is incredibly important.
Absolutely. We see it far too often when a beloved passes and funds aren't in order, and so GoFundMe's go up, and people are grieving, mourning, and also scrambling to figure things out. And that's something that definitely in my practice I want to contribute to in doing away with that process and bringing more dignified transitions so that we can be at better ease to deal with that transition as a unit, as a family unit for someone who has gone on. So that's such a great point. Such a great point. I think that's all the questions that I have for you. I thank you so much. So many gems were dropped. I know that this is going to reach just the right people. And I hope to, in the last thing that you mentioned about your vision of acquiring land for Indigenous burials, like I hope to, in whatever way I can, use what you said here and help amplify that, because that is so important. So yeah, thank you. I plan to be in, let me actually stop the recording.